What's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way, and welcome back, actually, to my D&D Hybrids challenge. It has been a minute since I've done this, and I felt like this would be a good way to go about things this time around. It's been a minute since I've done any D&D related stuff. May not have been that long. I'm not totally sure. But because I do these every week, it can sometimes feel like it hasn't been very long, and then it has. It's been like a month or two. At that, we are playing around again today with my character roller, which I still need to work on a little bit. I think make a new version of it. It's pretty good as it is, but yeah, I made this in Godot forever ago, and it's basically like a random number generator. It's a fantasy character roller, as I call it. It has D&D adjacent options. So as you can see here, we have like the height of the character, class, species, gender, skin tone, and the species that you get is either going to be kind of like generalized or like expanded upon. I decided to do this because I hadn't necessarily seen something that could roll two species at once, and that was really what I wanted, and that's why I have a hybrid button, which gives you two species up here. Skin tone is truly random, as a little weird, so sometimes I just use it for like a base color for the character maybe, or to inspire their color over using the random rolled skin tone overall. But at that, let's just roll some hybrids, and these can be anything from human hybrids to a hybrid between two species that wouldn't normally have babies. This is this is kind of for pure fantasy like flavor, and probably not very balanced at all, but I thought that it would be fun and it makes sense to me. So other species deserve to get freaky. So let's just get started, and I'll probably roll 3 characters and make a little party like I usually do. So a boop. Okay, so we have a 4-foot tall druid who's a werebeast. That makes perfect sense. And catfolk. They're non-binary, and their skin tone or overall color is blue. That is our first selection, which this does make sense, that they would be both of these things. Or that they would be a druid and a werebeast, I should say. Like, that feels very like, that's like Halson from BG3. Like, I remember seeing something that he was supposed to be a werebear, but they didn't go for it. Makes sense. So our next selection is going to be a boop. 7 feet tall. It tends to like to roll either short or really tall. Their class is sorcerer. They are a warforged and a fox folk. So sort of a kitsune type, but they're mechanical. Which isn't totally a hybrid. It probably seems like a fox-shaped robot, which is interesting. Although I've done something similar before where I've made them like a cyborg, so that could also be a route I could go down. Okay, we've got another non-binary character, and a dark blue skin tone / mane color. Okay, and yeah, I usually just take screenshots of these, and the link to this roller will be in the description. I made this, like I said, and it's up on itch. It's simple, but it's free, so if you want to check it out, you certainly can. Alright, and our final selection of today. Boop. 4-foot tall. Artificer. So sort of like a crafty type. Squirrel folk and cat folk. Interesting. And a man. Their skin tone / like main tone, I guess fur tone even, or just their main color motif is this kind of purpley white gray. Okay, interesting. I could see how this could work. I see a albino character here, I think, but I don't know about mixing a squirrel and a cat. Okay, let me pop you guys over to clips so you can see what we're working with here. And again, 4-foot tall druid, werebeast, wolf, werebeast, so werewolf, or werebear, weretiger, wererat, and catfolk. That'd be funny to have like a catfolk that turns into a rat. Or a tiger, I guess, would probably make more sense. They are non-binary with a blue, like teal mane tone, kind of a cyan, similar to the one I imagined for my my iconography with my name, Cyandox. And then our second one is a 7-foot tall sorcerer, which tall sorcerers do make sense to me. I don't know why. Maybe I just keep rolling them. But they are a warforged and fox folk. So they're either a cyborg or a fox-shaped robot. And they are also non-binary. And they are also blue. And our final member of this party is a 4-foot tall artificer, who is a squirrel folk and cat folk. He's a man, and his color tone is, yeah, it's a mostly white, gray, blue. Alright. Well, interesting. I will definitely have to deliberate on these three a little bit, as I usually do, but I will throw this over to Speedpaint voiceover for you guys so you can see what I came up with after I figured that out. So, see you there. First up, we have our Catfolk Werebeast Druid. This is one of the available hybrids that feels more like a secondary trait as opposed to a true hybrid, but I sort of did both for this character. I based them off of an oriental short hair, those very long cats that look a bit like Adam Driver, because I felt like it could make for a very interesting, expressive looking character and also kind of fit the vibe that I decided to go for. I also decided to give this character and their beast form a very stars and moon motif because at least werewolves are associated with the moon cycle. The way I decided to depict their beast form was sort of in a more ethereal way, just behind them, sort of projected out, like a shadow almost. I figured it would be funny to almost be sort of a Bruce Banner and the Hulk situation, so we have this kind of meek, lanky druid and their massive werecat. I guess depending on opinion, this could be a variant of the were-tiger, but I made their beast form a jaguar, which I feel like could maybe still be in the cat region. Not totally sure. I named this character Enif, which is a name for a star in the constellation Pegasus, and also apparently Arabic for nose, which felt apt for this character. They kind of remind me of One from the movie 9, specifically kind of that one line, I think in the trailers, where he's like, sometimes fear is the appropriate response. I think Enif is a little freaked out by the idea of calling on their beast form because it isn't quite as reliable as they'd like it to be. Enif was raised in a grove of druids who were masters of what they called star beasts, a chosen beast form with ethereal connections. Enif was a foundling left at the entrance of the grove, not particularly common for a coalition of beasts in the middle of nowhere, but their guardians quickly noticed that they had a werebeast curse, likely inherited by blood. The star beasts were typically chosen, but the druids still raised the child as if they were simply part of their own order, and the beast responded, for the most part. It seems as though Enif's curse still refuses to cooperate fully. Their guardians figured it may be because they can't communicate with them the way the other druids can tame their own beasts. Enif eventually decided to set out and learn what they could on their own to help get in touch with their beast side. It seems to be more so a part of them than a guardian like the other star beasts, but it took upon very cosmic-like features at the same time. It continues to surprise them and, for that matter, scare them. Enif has never been the brave type and usually approaches situations with caution, while their beast form is obviously all about diving into combat, but they worry that that could lead to hurting others. Next up, we have our Foxfolk Warforged, another kind of classifying hybrid, almost, because for the most part, I don't think robots can reproduce. Like, I'm sure they could at least damn well try, but I usually go for the cyborg route. For the fox side of things, I initially considered a fennec fox, but their kind of bitty size didn't really fit the tall description the roller gave me. Instead, I got to learn a new thing and find out about the Arabian red fox. It sort of looks like somebody took a fennec fox and stretched it. They also seem to have these interesting long, skinny tails. They almost resemble a jackal, really. I thought it would be cool to use kind of a pre-existing prosthesis shape in the leg blade to represent the digitigrade back legs, and it gave me the notion that this is a character who likes to travel and run. I figured based on their base inspiration, they would also have kind of a very deserty vibe to their outfit. I tried my best to keep a balance between the animal and robotic parts. They have sort of an exposed ribcage with what I assume is their magic heart visible and some magic conduits on their palms. Because of their legs, I decided to name this character Stride with a Y. Apparently I like doing that with random nouns for names. Hello, Tide. Stride was a magical experiment of sorts, possibly not even a sapient foxfolk to start, but just a wild animal corpse found and given life. They're not fully sure. Stride was created with nefarious service in mind as a magical automaton powered by their master's magic to cast spells on his behalf. For years they worked mindlessly until one day, for no discernible reason, they woke up. Something in the source of all things gave the animal in Stride a sense of freedom again, and its programmed knowledge of magic gave it a means to escape its enslavement. Now Strider lives in service of itself and those it chooses, usually running little errands over vast distances. They met Enif and offered what they could in terms of magic knowledge and their help in their search. Stride is knowledgeable in their own magic, but the world at large is a different struggle altogether, and they're still learning the ins and outs of it all. It's kind of refreshing for Enif, who's also a little sheltered and socially awkward. They get to be the most socially adept person in the room a lot of the time. Until we meet the next character. And finally, we have the squirrel and catfolk hybrid artificer. Thankfully, all my knowledge from previous animal hybrids let me kind of get both sides mostly represented in this weird hybrid, at least I think so. Because of that almost white base color, I decided to make an albino character, which kind of officially also makes this the blue-eyed squad. I made this guy kind of a ratchet we have at home because he has this giant pipe wrench I figured he could use to fight when he doesn't have the proper tech on him. He gives me kind of the harried, mad scientist vibe, which I feel like suits the artificer class pretty well. It's basically an archetype. I made him look fairly squirrel-like, but sharpened the ears, sort of readjusted the eyes to the front, and thinned out the base of his tail to evoke cat, also the slit pupils and fangs, of course. I kind of implied his lower feet also had, like, some sort of retractable claws, too. I named this guy Aspen because I figured a squirrel folk person would opt toward tree names, and Aspen is a naturally white bark tree. Cats are also semi-arboreal, so I feel like if his parents are, or at least were, in a long-term relationship, they would have agreed on that. Aspen's parents were both modern sorts of folk, living in a very interspecies sort of city. Of course, there were still issues, and their relationship and subsequent unprecedented pregnancy caused a huge scandal in their circles, especially because their lineages have such rocky history. Nobody even expected their species to be compatible to hybridize, much less so Aspen's parents. The resulting mix did seem to lend some strange genetics like Aspen's albinism, which adds challenges like poor vision. Aspen was raised in luxury and top propriety, but also kept mostly out of the way to avoid too much scrutiny. At first, as anxious as he was, Aspen found it calming and set to study every book on mechanics he could find and tinker around. It then became a gilded cage after a while, though, and Aspen couldn't help but feel curious about the greater world, despite his sort of sheltered prejudices toward it. Armed with his wits tech and a trusty wrench to deal with ruffians, Aspen set out to see the world and how he could help it. He quickly came across Enif and Stride, at first doubly cautious of the Canid folk in the group, but also deathly curious about their magic-based automation. He decided to assist the two of them in their quest if that meant he could pick Stride's brain, maybe body, not in a weird way, about its mechanical nature. Stride is pretty willing to match his freak, and he's also able to flex his otherwise unutilized social skills in high society with these two misfits. But those are my characters for this week. We've got a furry party this week, which is always fun for me. Which one is your favorite? And if applicable, which would you play if that's any different? Which I feel like it always could be. I personally really like Enif for both, but I could see either of the two being really fun to play as well. Stride definitely seems like they would be fun in the kind of brand new vibe that they have, despite being a sorcerer, which I think is like a charisma or wisdom caster. Book smart, not street smart, okay? Let me know in the comments, as well as any other art challenges you'd like to see me do in the future, but at that, I'll leave this here, and I'll see y'all next time.